inside.
He's the same.
We are live.
Yes. You don't see David around as much anymore. He never ran for election. He ran for a couple before. David always has it hasn't changed.
Okay, folks. It's 50 seconds beyond 7 o'clock, so I will go ahead and wow, everybody got quiet really quick. Impressive. Thank you all. I'll call the meeting to order. Let's have a pledge to the flag, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to start out with a public hearing, an ABC public hearing for Grassroots and Vine.
Yes, it's a transfer of the ABC license to new owners. If anybody is in the audience that wants to talk about that.
Are we talking liquor license?
Yes.
Okay.
If there are no comments about that, that's closed. So we will do a roll call, please.
Mrs. McIntosh? Here. Mr. Bender?
Here.
Mr. Allison?
Here.
Mr. Beasley? Not here. Mr. Blau?
Here.
Mr. Strain?
Here.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for the minutes of the April 21st council meeting.
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
There's a couple things I want to add to that. I don't think we're on the meeting. I'm sorry, I was trying to pull up my computer. I had to stand this earlier. There were two things I would like to add that that during the minutes we all discussed as you were here to meet with planning commission to go over the comp plan. We all agreed to meet with them, so that wasn't in there. I wanted to make sure that we are going to meet with them. I did see it in the back of the newspaper or in the back of the flyer, the newspaper that the planning commission, for those who don't know, will be meeting with their next 3 meetings. Is that what it said? I'm not sure. It said next 3 meetings. Just go up there if anybody has anything they want to tell about the comp plan, please do. What's that, Mike? So I just want to make sure that gets on the books for the record, and then we also sending the bicycle or the scooters back down to all their license. Make sure that was everybody agreed to that as well too. I didn't make any motions.
I contacted Andy about that. So
okay.
I'm just
all right
working through that right now.
All right. Yeah. I know you guys were working on the budget, so I didn't want to bother too much this month. But Tim, I don't know if you saw it on the way here. I thought you looked left, that we were at the stop sign, there was a guy in the scooter on the right, and there was just 2 kids on the electric bike who were right behind me. He legitimately had a backseat. Did you notice that, Tim? So these electric bikes that are on the sidewalks are not motorcycles. I mean, he legitimately had a backseat with a riser on the back and 2 12-year-olds on them. So I just think we need to be very careful. These things are going fast. Now they're riding motorcycles on sidewalks, so I think we need to make sure that we get ahead of that.
Okay.
So.
All right, those in favor of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, we'll also entertain a motion for the minutes of the May 13th Finance Committee.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're down to visitors communications. Fire department introduction, please.
I'm up front and center. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So, effective May 1st, we had one of our members who retired, Mike Watson, from the department. He'd served the department for over 17 years, and he finally achieved retirement. So with that, that created an opening, and with that opening from our existing list, we hired Craig Anderson. So come on up here, Craig. So Craig started, his first official day was on the 5th of this month. He did his 2 weeks orientation, and today is his first day on his newly assigned shift. He comes to us by way of Florence, and he had previous experience from Walton prior to that. Firefighter paramedic, well experienced. He's already assimilating very well into his crew. He's a ship assigned today's crew to Captain Carr. He's over there. So today I'd like to go ahead and present him with his badge. He'll be badge number 8, and like I said, assigned to shift number 2. And I think he's got someone special he wants to put the badge on, his wife, Julie.
Yeah. Try to stick in. That sounds great.
So with me, I have my wife Julie, I have my oldest son Jackson, my middle son Colton, and my youngest Bennett, 10, 8, and 5. And then I have Julie's parents, I have my in-laws, Jim and Deborah Niederleiter. Jim is a retiree of the City of Covington Fire Department as well. So they're here supporting me. Couldn't do it without them. Holding me deaf. So thank you guys so much for the opportunity.
Welcome to Fort Thomas. Fort Thomas Business Council update.
Well, no new businesses to introduce this month, but I know we'll have a couple next month, so always excited when we can do that. I did want to report back, so we had our first Business Council annual dinner with the other business councils under the Chamber umbrella between Fort Thomas, Newport, and Lawrence. We had, I know some of the folks here were there. We had a great turnout. I think we had over 150 people there. We had the EKU men's basketball coach was our keynote speaker, and he was awesome. So that was really cool. We're looking forward to seeing that grow as we bring on more business councils under the Chamber umbrella. And then just wanted to tell everybody our next meeting will be June 26th at the mess hall. It's a lunchtime meeting, and we're going to have a Campbell County update from Judge Pendry. So that'll be 11:15 to 1. So hope to see a lot of you there.
Thank you. That event was a lot of fun.
It was.
It was neat having the 3 different cities there, and I hope it builds up every year and gets to be a bigger and bigger event. Because it's great even interacting with other businesses from the other cities as well.
For sure.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you. All right, I have a couple of, you want me to read through these things? Okay. I have a couple of proclamations. Building Safety Month, May 2025. Whereas our city of Fort Thomas is committed to recognizing that growth and strength depends on safety, an essential role our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of village and guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, territorial, tribal, and federal officials who are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes and standards to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas these modern building codes and standards include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our code officials, who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our property. And whereas Game On, the theme for Building Safety Month 2025, encourages us all to get involved and raise awareness about building safety on a personal, local, and global scale. And whereas each year, in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local, state, tribal, territorial, and federal building safety and fire prevention departments in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Eric Haas of the City of Fort Thomas, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2025 as Building Safety Month. Accordingly, I encourage our citizens to join us as we participate in Building Safety Month activities. Signed, Eric Haas, Mayor.
That's
That's one, and we have another one. I probably should have read these. Okay. National Public Works Week proclamation, May 18th to 24th, 2025. People, purpose, presence. Whereas public work professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities, to public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Fort Thomas, Kentucky. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of the public work professionals, who are engineers, managers, employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children of Fort Thomas, Kentucky, to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2025 marks the 65th Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, Canadian Public Works Association, be it now, I, therefore, Eric Haas, do hereby designate the week of May 18th to the 24th as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public work professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and advancing quality of life for all. And witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand this third day of today, whatever the day is, in the year of our Lord. It says third day of July. Today is not the third day of July, but anyway, I'll sign it anyhow. Anyhow, so those two proclamations, which are all good things, by the way. We are now down to
1 second before you start that, I wanted to take a shout out to the chief of over there, the fire department, real quick. When it comes to Building Safety Month, police obviously is, we're one of the safest cities around, but for those you don't know, the fire department comes and inspects my place. My business is in Independence all the time, and make sure all my equipment is up to date. My tiles are in place. There's things that I don't know. Not to say it's annoying, but it's a necessity. And I don't know if people realize that's part of their job or responsibility, and it does keep us safe and it makes sure everything's done correctly. And my fire extinguisher could be out of code, and they tell me how to correct it. And those are things that are essential. So I just want to make sure that people understand that building safety. You guys do a lot of work people may not see when you're out and about. Just because there's a Subway next door, you're not eating there. You're in my there's somebody. So thank you, fire department, for that.
all right. We're to public comment. Ken Bowman.
And Bowman, 60 Upper Lock Court, Fort Thomas. I'm here again, just to get the city's blessing on turning the tower orange again for Gun Violence Awareness Weekend. On June 6th, is Friday, is when it would go orange, and then on Monday, it'll be back to normal. So this is, I think, the 4th year we've done it. So.
You said it's this weekend?
No,
Oh.
June 6th.
I just emailed you before the form to fill out, we have a procedure for that now.
Oh, really?
That way everybody's clear on dates to and from, and we don't just get
Okay.
emails and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't see that.
yeah. So I just saw that you had signed up for that. I'm like, oh yeah. So
Okay.
I just sent that form. If you can just get that to Melissa,
Yeah.
it's very simple. It just says what it's for, and then
Okay.
Are we still doing gels, or do we have the system?
Yeah, I mean, I wish.
Are you
could
still
just
doing
pick a-
gels?
Yeah, I wish you could just pick a color, and then I need Tim's help or somebody from General Services. If we do the front of the tower, that requires the bucket to put them up there, so.
We'll look into that. About
yeah, once we get the form, then we send it out.
Yeah,
To the staff that needs it, and then we get it.
I'll get on it right away.
Okay,
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
If not too expensive, we looked into changing those out because we do it. We light up different colors for different themes all the time, and our different reasons to do it. And LEDs.
Just switch them out with light bulbs.
Well, the LEDs, something that can change color. I don't know how that works. I mean, gels are pretty easy, I would assume too, right? From the top of them, so but it's just easy. Yeah. Maybe Ken, you should ask the house across the street from Tower 2. They're always.
Oh, I know, they-
colors.
They
I'll see
can
that.
flip it, they can do that on their phone and they usually join in. Yeah. Thank you.
Ken. All right, John Paris.
Joan Ferris, 66 Bernie Lane. After listening to part of the recent meeting of the Finance Committee, I have a few questions and a request for clarification of several things on the topic of finances. Quotes that I might use tonight are lifted from Chapter 33, Financing Revenue for Fort Thomas, Kentucky, found in the American Legal Publishing Code Library. The fiscal year begins on July 1st of each calendar year, one day after June 30th, which ends the prior fiscal year. And here's one of the quotes, all the funds, account, and financial transactions of the city shall be subjected to an annual audit. The audit is to be conducted no later than 270 days after the end of the fiscal year. Side note, that would have been March 27th. It varies a day or so when it's a leap year, which it wasn't. The completed audit and all accompanying documentation shall be presented to the City Council at a regular or special meeting. The city shall publish this report. Off the quote. As of 4:20 this afternoon, which is the last I checked, the most recent published audit for our city is for the year ending June 30th, 2023. The completed audit and all accompanying documentation shall include the combined balance sheets, combined statements of revenue, expenditures or expenses, and changes in fund balances, retained earnings or financial positions for each fund of the city, and notes to such general purpose financial statements in accordance with, you'll listen to this, Tim, KRS Chapter 424, your favorite place. Back to the quote. In addition, copies of the financial statement prepared in accordance with KRS 424.220 must be available to the public at no cost. This is a tremendous and this is a tremendous and ongoing problem. My belief is that no discussion of any future allocation of funds should even take place until a deep, honest, and accurate audit is conducted by Allison Ball, the state attorney for the state of Kentucky, or a member of her staff. And by the way, I have never contacted the state attorney, the state auditor's office, or any other state office. Please make note of the fact that it wasn't me. When you hear of the report, it wasn't me. Any comments about the audit from 2 years ago?
We do an audit every year.
Well, it's not posted.
I'll see what the next.
We've asked several times.
Yeah, you've asked?
Yeah.
Yeah, you haven't asked me yet.
I may not have,
Yeah.
but it has been asked.
Yeah, it's always good to.
How can it be
Should be ahead
2
of
years ago that there has not been an audit that's published? It's by
We're currently
statute.
currently through our audit now. We're working through our audit. We have a file for an extension with the state. I'll look at the last audit and see what the status is of that one and why it's.
I mean, it's 2 years ago,
I'm very well aware.
and it must be published by these documents that I have found. So I do not understand that. Another thing, it says the purpose is to ensure that the executive staff administer their respective functions in accordance with these plans and to permit taxpayers and investors to form intelligent opinions based on sufficient information as to the financial policies and administration of the city. If that gets tossed, that's a problem. Preparation of the budget. This is again 33.23, chapter 33.23. The mayor or his designee, I assume that would be the mayor or Matt, at least 30 days prior to the beginning of each fiscal year, shall submit to the city council a budget and an explanatory budget message in the form and with the context as provided in chapter 33.28. For this purpose and not less than 60 days prior to the beginning of each fiscal year, he or an officer designated by him shall obtain that from the head of each office, department, or agency, estimates of revenue and expenditures from that office, department, or agency detailed by service activities within each department. That was in section A. Section C, the proposed budget and budget message shall be a public record in the office of the city clerk and shall be open to public inspection by any interested party. Not so easy to do. Under public hearing, which is 33.25, a notice of the place and time of the budget hearing and a summary of the proposed budget not less than 7 days nor more than 30 days before the public hearing must be advertised. At this time, all interested parties should be given an opportunity to be heard. That's about all I have. So we're left in the dark yet again. Here's the thing that it just
The
worries
budget
me.
is tonight. It's on
Pardon
the budget is on the agenda tonight.
It got on there today, this afternoon.
No.
2 days ago? Pardon me?
We've been dealing with this budget for several months now.
But not any public hearing. You're doing the ordinance.
I'm gonna look at the ordinance. There was no need for public hearing. Now, if we do have that in the ordinance, there is, but there's no KRS required a public hearing for it.
So
But we can't, if it's in our ordinance, we can have that in June. That's not a problem. We have followed everything that you just said is what we've done. So
Well, one of the things, I guess, my question is all of this chapter 33, which is the finance and revenue, in the American Legal Publishing Code Library, is that irrelevant? I mean, when it says that you have to, is that irrelevant?
I was not aware of that. Joan, there are a lot of ordinances in the city of Fort Thomas,
These aren't ordinances, these are the,
but that's not, a public hearing is not required for the budget. Now,
it is according to American
if
Legal
our-
Publishing Code.
but that's our own ordinances. So if the city of Fort Thomas has that in ordinance, then we will have a public hearing, next month. But I did not realize that was written in our ordinance, but it's not a state law. I've never seen a city do that.
Could you explain this American Legal Publishing Code, and trust me, I wasn't all that thrilled when somebody showed it to me, because you start reading it and you're like, what? It takes a whole lot of time. Is that worth anything? And it says when
What
you
do you
go
mean?
onto the American Legal,
Joan, what do you mean, what is what worth anything?
when you go onto the American Legal Publishing Code Library, you go down the list of the states,
That's all of our ordinance, okay.
and you go to Kentucky, you go down all the cities, and you go to Fort Thomas. I assume that what they say in there, that like all the funds, accounting, and financial transactions shall be subjected to an annual audit, I assume that was a true statement.
It is, the audit is different. I'm talking about the public hearing for the budget.
Well, they're all under the same, they're all under chapter 33.
But some of that is state law and some of it is just what the city council has asked for.
So how do we determine what is, I guess, for lack of a better,
What is what?
what is true? Like I'm
Everything
reading
that's
this.
in there is true. If that's what, I just didn't realize that it said you had to have a public hearing.
Okay.
That was, must have been something that was added by council whenever it was here. But we
Let
can
me
definitely
see
comply
when
with that. It's just not.
Let me see when that was.
But Joan, you can always get with me ahead of the meeting so I can actually be able to research some of the questions you have. It just make it easier.
It's not up. Okay, that's fine. I'm not sure, I mean, it takes a lot of time to do this. And I don't know if I want to do double up.
That's fine.
You know, my thing should-
It's an easier way to get
No.
some answers because a lot of times I get up here and I'm asked questions that I need a little bit of time to research, so I don't have the answers immediately.
Okay. It took a lot of time to get these answers, so I understand how much time it takes. My caution is the more things that, and I don't like to say this because I've always been a huge advocate of the city, a huge supporter, all the other stuff, long history, generational history. And once you lose trust or confidence, it's a tough thing to get back. And I feel bad that so much confidence is lost. And it's not lost from everybody, but it's lost from more and more. And I think it's a shame. And when you see these things, you must do this, and you hear, no, we don't. I don't think it benefits anybody. You guys, us.
John, I'd like to just say one thing. I appreciate your comments. As chair of the finance committee, and I also come from a generational family in town.
Understood.
And a lot of us do, and we're blessed to be that way. This is my 5th year as chair of the finance committee, and I'll get into some of the procedural things that we've changed over the 5 years I've been involved, and they're all for the better. As far as the audit and the publishing of the audit, I don't have any expertise there. That's not really a council role. I think that we have published the audit in the past years that I've been involved on a timely schedule. If we're late now, we'll find out why, certainly.
Two plus years.
Right, well, I'm assuming, if I'm doing the math correctly, if it's from 2023, it would have had to have been published. Is it 2+ years? You said March, the 20-something or other? And we don't need to get into semantics. You may be right that it's not published on time, and that's something we need to look into. But the second part of your comments, as far as the budgetary process, absent of a public hearing, we've always followed that as far as I'm concerned to a T, frankly, truly. And we had our meeting on, our finance committee meeting anyway, on May 13th, and the city staff has been going over the budget for months, and that's absent Joe Ewald. And they've done a spectacular job. I don't see, from the second portion of your comments, I guess, I'm not sure what the concern is, I guess is what I'm saying. Outside of potentially a public hearing, which I know is, we need to look into that, it sounds like.
Absence of a public hearing is massive. That's like saying absence of, we didn't have a finance committee meeting, but we're gonna pass this budget. And that absence of an extremely critical piece, not absence of, we didn't say the pledge before the meeting or something.
No, absolutely, understood. I guess my point being, unless my memory doesn't serve me, but I think it does, I mean, I'm not aware that we've had a public hearing in the 5 years I've been involved. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
I think we have. When I got here, we stopped because I didn't realize it was an ordinance because it wasn't necessary. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure that's accurate what I just said. I have to look back. Okay. No, I'm 100% accurate that it's not a state requirement. I'm just saying I didn't realize it was an ordinance. So
yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is we obviously we're striving to do everything in the legal way, and appreciate you bringing these things to our attention. But you know, outside of, as far as what we've done, you know, this year and in the years I've been involved, I think we're doing it on a timely schedule, and frankly, we're actually building time in. We did that intentionally this year, and we did it last year too, so that if we need to have another meeting in June, we can, and perhaps that's gonna end up being a public hearing, or it may just be another meeting before we approve the budget, but we intentionally built that time in so that we're ahead of schedule, and that we're doing things on the time frame that we're supposed to do them.
Just to clarify, the 2022 to 23 and 23 to 24 the audits have been completed.
Oh, yeah.
But they must be published.
They just haven't been published, so that's something that
that's
we just need to do.
So to my point, Andy, you say they're complete, they're not published. It just makes people that don't get to see the published audit
Sure.
a little.
They are published, but it may not be on the website correctly. That might be the only issue. Or the link might be bad or whatever. But every year we have an audit. Every year we go through and that audit is published and we get the letter that says that the auditors are, what is it? They're unqualified. Yeah. I love that line.
By publishing means have access to it.
Well, there will be a copy here in the city building someplace, but whether it got to the website properly, I'm not sure about.
I think the word published, if that's what's if having it in somebody's desk or downstairs is published, I'm not sure that it is. But that's between.
Originally, it was. We didn't have to publish the entire budget in a newspaper. Oh, you talk about the audit?
Actually, either.
Okay, either, yeah.
I mean, they have to be published. It's tough.
Jen, I acknowledge if it's not published, we will get it published. So I just need, I'm not perfect. We do miss things, so we just need to be.
You told me you were perfect.
No, so that's.
Joan, I'm gonna go ahead and get in line, because let's face it, really that issue is a Tim issue. That's something I should have caught, didn't catch. KRS, KRS does not require it. I didn't see that. That's a me problem. I'll have to deal with that. Thank you.
I don't think the KRS limits people to speak. I know I've spoken more than 3 minutes, which is unusual for me. I don't think that they limit the time on the meetings either, but y'all sure as heck do.
Well, I can tell you that all over Northern Kentucky they do that because it's just a manner of trying to control meetings. But back to your point, I think that issue rests with me and I'll deal with it. Thank you.
Okay, then just another thing is this little summary that I think we got this afternoon. I think it got posted this afternoon.
This morning.
Pardon?
This morning.
Was it? Okay.
I'll be reading that tonight. I will be reading it
That's all
tonight.
fine. But the fact is, what it says that you must put is more than just, oh, that's my medicine, hit stop. I take my medicine at 7:30. I'm sorry, I turned off my phone. This is the bottom, hit stop. I'm sorry. It has to be more detailed than this. You know, from what this,
There's two different issues. One is the budget and the other is the budget message. The budget
Correct.
message is just kind of an overview of what the budget, which we've done for the many, many years that I've been involved. There is a complete budget that can be reviewed, but the budget message is intended to give an overview of what the budget is.
right, but I guess what I'm saying is I don't believe that it's clear. When it says, we're continuing the city plan projects that have been well thought out and implemented, no mention of what they are.
Just,
I think
we have another
The
detail, we have something else that's more detailed, and then we have the budget.
And I read it, and I saw that. But what I'm saying is, I'm not sure that this summary suffices in the
Well, that's,
intent of,
that's the intent of a summary. Yeah, it's not gonna include everything and it may not answer all your questions, so you can look at the budget.
there's
and
gotta
see.
be more than a question then. We're gonna continue the same projects that have been well thought out and implemented. That is, what on earth? You don't have to say every single thing.
We covered all of that in the finance committee meeting last week.
And that's what got me up here, is listening to it, but the fact is, it has to be more. You know, you can disagree, and I
Understood.
understand that you clearly do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Not to be disagreeable. Tiffany Huber, 26 Hawthorne Avenue. I'm gonna set my timer, and when I ask a question, I'm gonna stop it until I get the answer, and then I'm gonna restart it. I think it's extremely disrespectful to your constituents to have a 3-minute limit. If you wanna call us Anytown USA, let's change the name from Fort Thomas to Anytown USA. We don't get an opportunity to speak with you all, except for this meeting, pretty much.
That is not true, Tiffany.
It is true.
You
It
can
is
meet with
true.
Any of us whenever you want.
I know, but then you tell us what we want to hear. The follow through is not there. It's true. I've been in these meetings since 2018. So please don't be disrespectful and tell me that it's any different. One of the things I'm up here to talk about, for the
Do you
record,
think you're being respectful to me, Tiffany, though? I mean, I'm not being disrespectful to you. I'm
it's
trying to
very difficult
offer
to
my-
be, okay, I'm gonna
to meet
stop
with
this
you.
right now. I would like to be respectful to you.
Okay, great.
But in being respectful to you, you actually need to change what's been happening, and I hold the mayor ultimately responsible for this as well, in terms of being transparent to the city. I have been asking for this since 2018, and we've made small little progress, but we haven't focused on it like we focused on other things, like putting up buildings and economic development and all these other things. And all we're asking for is transparency. Please be more transparent. The less transparent you are, I'll give you an example, the budget alone tonight. The fact that that was posted late and not on time, then we start looking at the older budgets. And just so everybody's aware, I have an undergraduate in finance. I have an MBA. I work in financial administration. I looked at these budgets and helped me understand how a column has one number in it, and at the total, it doesn't have the same number in it for the budget. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. These citizens spend a great deal of time working, not to come up here and disregard the accomplishments that you are making. But because you are not being transparent, it creates this rub between the community and the citizens. And you can go build a playground, you can go build something else, but if you're not building trust with your constituents, it's a problem. And I don't know how many times I can get up here and say this. Please start being more transparent. Put these things on the website and people won't be bothering you, Matt. Just put the stuff on there. Other nonprofits do that. Government, education, higher ed. They post this information on their websites, 990s, all different kinds of things. Post it for your people. And then you won't have 12 different people coming to you and saying, you know, how do I get this on the website? I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you. I'm just exhausted from nobody taking the transparency situation at the level that it needs to be. It needs to be your number one priority. Number one. If you're not communicating with your citizens, if you're not doing it accurately and timely, you've lost the majority of them. And so one of the things I would like to start with is, I heard tonight that we have a community plan. I recall through all the meetings that we had, of which we were here for every one of them, that we wanted a new community plan. That's what I heard. What did you all hear? Mayor, did you hear us say we wanted a new community plan?
Well, yeah, but we're not to that yet.
When you say we're not to that, go ahead.
We have a community plan. We're following that plan. We're doing the city's business on a regular basis. I'm sorry that you still feel we're not being transparent. I am trying everything in my power to give as much information as possible. You can run for council, then you'll get more information than what you do as a citizen. But at some level, I'm sorry that sounds weird, but we're elected to represent the people of the city.
Yes, of which I'm
I
one.
understand that, but I'm not sure you keep saying you want transparency, and we don't hide anything. I have focused dramatically on being transparent, but evidently we're not being transparent on something that you personally want. I don't know what that is. If you call Matt or call me, I'll be happy to tell you whatever it is you want to know.
We started with the agendas, and we said, give us the agendas earlier. When did we get the agenda back?
Comes out on Fridays.
Comes out on Fridays. We had this meeting on Monday. We previously asked, could these be provided ahead of time with more information about what was going to be discussed? Why can't the city move up their planning a week ahead to make these available for the people who are going to attend the meetings?
The history of this is that
But you can change the history.
prior to me becoming mayor, we met every 2 weeks. And what happened was, staff had about 1 week to try to get stuff done, and the next week they had to put together an agenda for the meeting. And we were getting nowhere in the city. So I said, let's have a meeting once a month. So at least they can work 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks before they have to start putting an agenda together for the next meeting. So it's been a lot more efficient. We have gotten a lot more accomplished in the city because of that. But we don't get the packet until Friday as well. So for you to want the packet before we see it, I don't see any value in that. We work to the last minute trying to get all the information together for us to have at our meeting. So council has the meeting in order to make decisions on it.
Do you think it's fair that the community gets this on a Friday?
Yes, because that's when we get it.
Okay.
I mean, typically we can do it earlier, but the problem is if we send it out as a draft and we change it and then.
It's okay, it's okay.
No, it's not.
Yes.
Because then we have people that say.
You can call it a draft.
I understand that, but we've done this before, and then people say I'm hiding things because I've changed it on a Friday. It's challenging, which is why we do it on a Friday, because I know by that is the deadline of anything that comes up, because it is challenging. If we do it a week ahead, I mean, we can put a draft out, but I've gotten accused of hiding things because we've added something in it, because, council has things that they know the week before council, they'll bring up stuff with me, and we'll add things in there, and that's, I get your point. I mean, I've never been asked to put it out earlier.
I just never worked anywhere where I got the agenda on a Friday for discussion on Monday. Never.
28 years I've gotten the agenda on Friday before my
Okay, well,
meeting.
I mean, I've been in,
Sorry.
I've worked for large companies.
I
I've worked
understand.
for-
Companies are
Yes.
different than government.
I've also worked for higher ed, which is also very much like government. They do
I'm
fund
sorry.
accounting as
I'm
well.
sorry we can't do anything
Tiffany, I
better
can
than
look. I can look at putting an agenda, but I mean, we can put it as a draft and see.
Well, I personally don't want to see that happen, and I'll tell you why. That's the whole reason I went from 2 meetings a month to 1 meeting a month. Because then he will spend his time trying to put an agenda together at the beginning of the week prior to this, and that stops his progress on the things that we're working on. Again, since we went to 1 meeting a month, and we have the first Monday of the month semi-reserved for us to do committee meetings, or if we need another meeting for something that's timely and important. We've become a lot more efficient, got a lot more things done on a timely basis. So no, we're not gonna provide it before Friday because that's when we get it. Now, maybe we could come out on Thursday if we've got enough information together, but otherwise, they're spending their time just working on an agenda.
Help me understand why it can't come out a week ahead of time.
That's what I just explained.
But you didn't really explain it, so I still don't understand.
Work for
what
2
you're saying.
weeks, work for 2 weeks
Mhm.
to do the business of the city,
Mhm.
then set an agenda. Work 3 weeks and set an agenda. You get more stuff done that way.
One example, just as your comments are very well taken, I understand it. One specific example with the budget, using that, we had our finance committee meeting 6 days ago.
Right.
And so we weren't sure when we sat down to meet at the beginning of the meeting if we were going to be ready to read the first reading tonight. So we had to go through the meeting and hash everything out. We had great participation, and I think that we did a phenomenal job. But we didn't know when we sat down that that was going to be on the agenda. And frankly, we probably didn't even know until Friday because we compiled a list of follow-up questions that we needed to get clarification on. And by the time Matt had time to get us answers, it was later last week, and then the budget came out on Friday. So it wouldn't have worked had we wanted to publish the agenda for this meeting today earlier than we did. We wouldn't have been able to do first reading tonight. And so then the only opportunity to do first reading is going to be next month, and then we have to schedule a special meeting next month to get it passed prior to July 1st, by the end of the fiscal year. And so there's a lot of moving parts in the background that go on, and I know you can understand that. I also appreciate the comments about transparency, and it's something that I know that the city staff and the council values, and I think we've made pretty impressive steps in that direction. I'm by no means saying that it's perfect, obviously, it's not and never will be. But we need to continue moving forward. The comments are well taken, but in regards to the council agenda, it becomes really complicated to publish it earlier, frankly, it really does. And I mean, sure, maybe we could, but then what happens, let's say you publish it on last Tuesday, for example, which would have been impossible in this case, like I said. You publish it last Tuesday, well, anything could have changed in the budget draft between Tuesday and today, and then we're sitting here and we don't have anything to do. We can't do a first reading.
I think what concerned people is they saw the first reading and the second reading, and there's discrepancies between what's on the ordinance that says there's supposed to be a public hearing. So imagine we have a city administration that's somewhat confused about what the rules are, and we're just simply using the website the way that we're supposed to, and we can't. We come here and they say, oh, well, there's confusion. So how do you expect your constituents to not be confused? It's kind of a comedy of errors. I know you're hearing my frustration. I do know you guys are trying, but I just also want to say it's been 6-7 years. And when we talk about the community plan, I realize that you all put this community plan together for you all with those, 200 people or however many there are. There are many more people in the city who want to be involved in a new community plan. I think that came out loud and clear in all the planning and zoning committee meetings. And I got the sense from this council that that's what we were going to be doing.
We are.
Now I get the sense that just planning and zoning is going to decide. But see, that goes back to where is the communication to the city to help them understand what's going on with the new plan and zone? Do you see what I'm saying?
It's out in the newsletter. I mean, we made it very clear. We put it on the website. We've listened to that, and we put out the steps. I mean, we've talked about it in council meetings. We've talked about it in planning commission meetings. I wish.
What are you going to be doing with the
planning commission right now is following KRS. They're reviewing the research. They're reviewing the goals and objectives. I mean, we're following the steps.
So we're not doing a new get the community together and see what they want.
I don't know if we haven't gotten to that level yet. We have to follow the steps. It's laid out in KRS 100.
Okay. Well, if I'm wrong about that, I apologize sincerely.
And I have it, and
I
I have
was
a
under the
procedure.
understanding that they were just moving forward like normal.
I have a procedure that I can share with you that we laid out, that's based on KRS, that I provided to council last month and we talked about, that lays out the process that has to be followed.
You know, if you heard in the beginning of the meeting, last month we discussed that, because it came up at planning commission, and all of us that were here agreed to meet with planning commission to go over the comp plan so we can get voice all our opinions, to make sure that we're getting as many voices that we have heard out there. And we actually got an email, because we talked about this, and everybody agreed to do another survey. Because now we have 2 surveys under our belt, and Matt sent out an email 2 weeks ago, asking if we agreed with some of these questions that were on there. So getting another survey done for the people, because we have so much engagement, and then getting it back to us before we have a combination meeting. I think it's a great step moving forward. That comprehensive plan was done a long time ago, and I think it's
Yeah, I think it
a little
started in
outdated.
2016.
It did. And 2020 came in, and that kind of elevated the world a little bit. You know what I mean? It was definitely changed things. But I think we're definitely making the steps to make sure people are heard in that particular plan. You know. I was kind of curious about what Joan said about that public hearing, and I just want to make sure, Mike, Tim, I don't know if you're looking this up or not. Can we have the first reading tonight without the public hearing if there is an ordinance that states that?
I'm looking.
Okay, I was just curious. I didn't know if you were or not, but that kind of made sense to me. This is, we have another meeting scheduled June 2nd.
You can do it between, as long as it's before the second reading.
And when we talk about transparency in terms of the website, and this will be the last thing that I'll say, one of the very first things I remember Tom Morrison and I asking for back in 2016 was sign up at the website, which we've done, and get event notifications. That has not happened. And again, if you're putting...
I even put it in the, have you seen the newsletter yet? I wrote in my section how to get the events on your phone, because that's what I have to do. And I know
That's not exactly what I'm talking about, but okay.
You're talking about the notification.
This is where you post something on the website,
Yeah.
and then you get a notification so that you can go out and look.
Oh,
instead of us
sorry.
constantly trying to figure out on your website what's new.
All right.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry.
sorry, but I appreciate that.
That's,
I
yeah,
do.
I
2
do
weeks
not-
ago, that's what we had discussed, because you had sent me that 2 weeks ago. And that's what
You're not-
we did a sample that wasn't very successful a couple months ago, and we're working through that right now. So to do a weekly, sorry, Mayor, I didn't keep cutting you off. To do a weekly update of essentially what the news is on the website, so you don't have to go to the website. Is that what you're referring to?
There's a couple of different ways to do it, and I'm hearing something different from you that I didn't understand before. The way I was picturing it was exactly what he just said. You sign up, you get basically a newsletter.
No, that's not what, it's an event notification, which means as you post events to the website, not a party, but information, then you get notified that something was posted so that you can go out and look at it.
So every time anything's posted on the website, it
Yes.
notifies you?
Yes,
It's an automatic push.
yes, it's a push.
Okay, I still want to do the newsletter though.
That's
I
fine.
get Newport's newsletter and somebody else's newsletter, and it just kind of highlights the stuff that's happening now, and most of it is a repeat of what's put on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. But it comes to your mailbox instead of you having to see it in a feed. So we're working on that. But yeah, the notification, yeah, we can do. I'm sorry, I never picked that up before. I always thought it was the newsletter aspect.
And just so you know, I know that NKY Link has something for your notices related to the public hearings that does that for us.
We pay for
Whatever
that for public
whatever
hearings.
that little
That's fair,
app is, they use an app, and so maybe the app could be a possibility. I'm only up here because I care. If I didn't care, I'd be sitting back at my house having a margarita or something right now. So,
Well,
I
just,
do care.
and I do understand that, but I also want you to know that all of us up here care too, because we don't get paid very much.
I
And
know,
it's
we don't get
because,
paid either.
well, I know, and it's because all of us in the city care about the city, so we appreciate your concerns. And I'm glad I heard something different than I heard before about the notification. That, I did not process that before, so I apologize for that.
I appreciate that.
I see both sides of this on the agenda stuff. I think I was trying to go back in my phone and look when it comes out on Friday, and I just got the last one. It was like 3 o'clock or something like that. So late on Friday afternoon, I seem to remember that being the case fairly typically, maybe not.
Same
But
time when they deliberated.
if we, is there a way, I'm thinking of a way to, a happy medium here, like, can we move it back to where it's done on Thursday, where it's out there, so you have 2 full business days? That would be personally helpful to me, just to have 2 business days in the weekend to go through it. So, not a week, I get what you're saying, but, it does a day or a day and a half monkey with the whole system?
It does. I mean, by
It's large.
Thursday, surely, yeah, but we do have last minute add-ons. But it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, if it needs to be changed, it needs to be changed. I wouldn't worry about.
That's fine.
Somebody thinks you're trying to hide something. I mean, I get it, but
Well, it's
because we come to
interesting
you with stuff and say we want to discuss this, and it might be 3 days before because something comes up, and it doesn't happen all the time.
Right.
But then we have to change it.
Okay, I would prefer Thursday too, simply because I'm in front of the computer for, all day, Monday through Friday, and kind of weekends are weekends, so if I gotta leave Thursday, I would be more apt to dive in on Friday, just a personal opinion on me. Not weekends or weekends.
I would also agree with Thursday, maybe with Wednesday, because like, for example, getting it on Friday afternoon, I didn't really have the time with stuff planned on the weekend, and that I didn't get to dive into this really until this afternoon. So I actually found something this afternoon where I didn't even have time to talk to you about it. I was gonna bring it up in a minute when we talk before voting on this. I can talk about it now, since we're talking about the budget. Would you like me to?
No,
Let's wait for the budget.
And
And I go back to the email blast, and I've been talking about that for a while, it's funny, last month we talked about it, and I think some of us are signed up in other cities and get blasts. The next day I got a survey from Union, you know what I mean? So, and I think the nice thing about these things now is you can sign up for the newsletter, you can sign up for events. When I unsubscribe from things that who knows what I signed up for, usually I go back and unsubscribe, and you can highlight what people want. So there's 4 or 5 options you can get why they want a newsletter. I mean, Justin Otto puts out that weekly blast from Campbell County. We get it every week. It's a little bit much, I think, personally, just taking articles from other places, and it's probably a lot harder when you're trying to be specific about one city, but I still think it's something that we're way behind the times on. And then we gather a list and more information from people too, so.
And the last thing I would say is please stop making us like other cities. We can be our own city. We teach our children not to go jump off a bridge because somebody else did it. Let's be Fort Thomas. We're pretty cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Folks, a budget ordinance can be considered a first reading by city council without a public hearing. It is a procedural step where the ordinance is presented. It can be done so without public hearing.
So
Within
are
our
you
city
saying that,
ordinance
is
program.
that KRS, or is that this thing that I was reading?
It's an AG opinion that I was looking at, because KRS doesn't deal with it right now. Our ordinance requires that hearing, but the first reading is a procedural step. You can conduct the first reading without a public hearing. We'll have a public hearing at the second reading.
But it's already on your handout of what those ordinances are. It has the approval date.
Those are estimated approval dates.
It doesn't say estimated approval date.
Jen, they always are, because you've seen how council will say, can we table that till next month? That changes it. We could leave them all
So the
blank.
hearing, you're gonna have the hearing, what, an hour before the approval?
It's possible, yeah.
So I should bring, I bought, for this group, 10 pre-stamped approved. Should I bring them next month? I've brought them
Okay,
before
Jen,
and
thank
not
you.
used them.
Sure, that would be nice. Melanie?
I withdraw,
Thank you. Just one other point of information about the transparency. Prior to the internet, the police department delivered a manila envelope filled with our agenda and our packet. No one in the city got them except city council. If you wanted to know what was happening in the city, you'd have come to city council meeting. So we are leaps and bounds ahead of what we did for the majority of my years on council. So we're working on it.
That's how I started. That was not long.
Thanks for buying the iPads.
All right, we are down to reports of officers, fire department report.
Well, Mayor, May is a very busy month as far as different organizations having their month for building safety and National Public Works. I believe last week, and Chief Kilgore can correct me, was National Police Week. Well, I mentioned that because this week is National EMS Week, so
Awesome.
this week we're celebrating our paramedics for all the hard work they do and everything like that. So, you know, I gave them a little memento, a little gift today, so for each shift, but we're real proud of what they do.
I would have been happy to do a bunch of whereas's for that too, if you
I
would have
think
given me something.
we're pretty good. We're
Okay.
pretty good. You did a well enough job before. That's all I have.
Any questions for the chief? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to receive and file?
Yes. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Police Department.
Thanks, Mayor. Just the only thing from the monthly, we did have our drug take back in April. We took in 131 pounds of prescription drugs that were unused, unwanted, and we took in several prescription glasses as well that will be refurbished and donated. So another good day for drug DEA take back.
131 pounds?
We were the winners of all the locations once again.
Wow.
I saw
We're always winners. I don't know if it's marketing or the location or just our people are passionate about giving up their unused drugs, but we're always first.
Chief whiz. It's amazing. All right, anything for the chief? Entertain a motion. Motion to receive and file?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. City Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mark. We've had a pre-construction meeting with all of our projects ongoing right now. We've only had one since the last council meeting. That was River Road entrance. That should start after July 7th. It will obviously be done between July 4th event, and it'll be complete before the summer Merchants of Music, sorry. But they are supposed to be starting July 7th, and it's gonna be about a 3-week project. So everybody's aware. We've notified everybody in the park and are coordinating with the school district's project as well. We've redone the mound at Tower Park, as some have seen. That was over the weekend where we weren't happy with the condition of the
Seams?
Yeah, of the seams of the mound. So they redid that over the weekend, so that should be good now. I haven't inspected it today, but we were having trouble keeping people off. But it should look a lot better. We have been dealing with the budget very heavily over the last couple of weeks, and we had our finance committee meeting with that last week. That went well, and I'll let they talk a little bit about that in a little bit. Legislation, we have the budget amendment for last year, this year's budget, pay classification ordinance with the increases from the raises this year, and then the municipal order appointing our next board member for planning commission. Pending anyone's questions, that's all I have. Yes, sorry, right there, there's report.
Oh, okay. And that's part of the report committee. So you're next.
Would you like me to give a report?
Sure.
Okay. And a big part of my report will be the budget summary and narrative that the mayor will read, and I kind of mentioned it earlier. We met last Tuesday. Great participation from council, and I'm not going to go into the details of the numbers simply because the mayor will. A thing that's on my mind based on some of the conversation tonight, it is important to recognize this isn't something that, you know, council doesn't see this budget summary and narrative, and we frankly don't even discuss it. We go through line by line, 20+ page document and it's not just the finance committee, it's everyone who can be there. And what we spent 2.5 hours plus additional back and forth with Matt and questions that we have throughout the week. It's a very collaborative process, frankly, and I say this because I've always been proud every year of my 5 years on council and as a member of the finance committee of the work that we do. But literally every year it's gotten better. It's become more streamlined. The work done by the staff is more streamlined. It's easier for us to understand. I think that sometimes when the public gets a little bit concerned, for lack of a better word, I guess, about specific line items and things like that, that's all stuff we can talk about if those are brought to our attention. But we're elected to go through the nitty-gritty details, and most of it, frankly, is it's year after year, it's the same budget. It's this person, this laborer in the Parks and Rec department, this is their salary, and here's how many, and it might have gone up by 70,000 year over year, and that's because we added 2 employees, that type of thing. But we really, I'll speak for myself. I've been so proud of the work that the entire council, not just finance committee, because we've all been involved in it, we do to go through this whole thing. And you know, this year was unique in the sense that, you know, we were down our finance director, frankly, and that put a big strain on the city staff. And they came through swimmingly. I know Matt put a lot of extra time into it. It's always been easy for me when I have questions that I don't understand about the budget to ask Joe, and we kind of laugh about Joe because that's what he does. He's really good at it. He's a nerd in that respect. But he can dig in and he can pull. He doesn't even necessarily need to look at his notes, and he can tell you the answer right off the top of his head a lot of times. We didn't have that resource this year. And we still, I think, Matt did a phenomenal job and the staff did a phenomenal job. But that's not to say that we can't continually improve. I think that's all of our goal. And I think that frankly, next year is going to be a better process than this year. And the following year will be better than that year. But I really am proud of the work that we've done. And, you know, one of the things that I strive to do, and I'm not suggesting that other council members do this, but it's helpful for me anyway to, when I have questions, for example, with the finance committee meeting, we covered a lot of ground. Matt got us responses to our questions back. If something else were to come up that I noticed later, you know, I want to address that, or at least get an answer before the council meeting, so that I know where we stand and I know what the, you know, black and white is, and I know what the answer is. That way, if, for example, if somebody in the community asks about it, I go ahead and know, and we're not sitting here at a council meeting going back and forth about, well, I need to look back into that. Like, we just need to strive as a community, and I'm not specifically talking about finance. I mean, as a community, when there's issues that come up, let's really try to to get to the bottom of these. I'm going to get criticized for saying this. Behind the scenes is the wrong term, but before the council meeting. I mean, that's why we have such a great city staff. And frankly, come to us, come to any one of us council members. And if you're not comfortable going to city staff, or if you're not getting a timely response from city staff, whatever it may be, come to us and put it on us. And then if you don't get the answer from us that you're looking for, then you can have a bone to pick. And that makes perfect sense, and that's on us. That's why we're elected, is to represent you. But I'm getting
Go to
windy.
Ben, by the way. Go to Ben.
What's that?
Go to Ben.
Go to
You want to, yeah.
Come to me, that's fine, that's perfectly fine, yeah. Trust me, I'm looking for ways to get out of my house at all times, so it's,
Don't let your wife know that.
yeah, my wife's watching, too. I'm kidding, Devin, but, kind of. But, no, the finance, I'm excited to hear the mayor's budget summary. Again, the members of council and the finance committee, we didn't see the summary. This is put together after we go through everything. I know Andy mentioned that he found a couple things, I'm assuming it's budget related, that you want to talk about tonight, and that's great. But we did. I mean, I just want the community to know we had a heck of a robust discussion, and every single year it's gotten better. And from an organizational perspective, when you look at the entire budget document, which I don't recommend anyone do unless they're trying to find ways to help them sleep at night, it's a complicated document. There's always been lines where there's questions about, well, this money's being spent for this purpose, but why is it under this category? And one thing that I've noticed in the last few years with Matt and the mayor's leadership and council's guidance is that we're really trying to streamline things, and we're trying to eliminate funds that are unnecessary, funding sources that are unnecessary, and we're trying to get the dollars matched up to where they're going to be spent. That's all an effort of transparency. That's all that is. And
I'm just worried about the math. Some of the
The
math
math
doesn't
doesn't
match.
we'll see, and we'll have to talk about that off
Yeah,
the record,
I'll
I guess,
meet
because
with you
when you guys made that comment earlier, and that struck me, and I recognize what you said, but I don't know what you're talking about.
I'll show you afterwards.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think we're in a great spot. We've done a fair amount of spending in town over the last few years, probably more than some are comfortable with. That spending has been largely designated towards projects that I feel like are for the betterment of the largest number of citizens in town, vis-a-vis Tower Park, for example, or, well, Tower Park as a whole. I was going to say the athletic complex, but that too. The money that we've got budgeted for next fiscal year, this coming fiscal year, for the Midway District is a spectacular thing. It's very pricey, but these are things that, as we approach, you know, not just this year, not just the year after, we're really trying to get an idea of where do we want to be. Fort Thomas has always been great financial ground, and that's thanks to our community members. But it's also thanks to our budgeting, and it's thanks to the way that we're very fiscally responsible, and it allows us, when we have something that needs to be done, we can do it, and we don't have to wait a year or 2 or 3 years. And so we are spending, you know, we've been spending money on public improvements, and that's phenomenal. I think the next couple steps that we're gonna take over the following years, like I said, are continue to streamline the process and clean it up. That's all an effort of transparency, but also identify, where do we wanna be as a baseline? What kind of numbers do we wanna have in our fund balance? What's a healthy number? And of course, we look at communities around us to see what they do. That doesn't mean that we follow that guideline. In fact, we routinely carry, I think, quite a bit more money than most of our neighboring communities, than all of our neighboring communities. And that's a philosophical financial conversation that council, along with input from the community and the staff and the mayor's leadership, just decide. But we're in a great place. I really think that we are, and I think that, truthfully, in the years that come, we're going to hone in on really identifying what works the best. And I think that we're in a good spot now, but things always change, and we need to be receptive to that, right? And so that's all I have to say about it. But I look forward to the budget summary and narrative. I look forward to the feedback too after the meeting.
All right, I'll go ahead and read it. Well said. Very good. I'll read the budget message. City budget message, fiscal year 25-26 proposed budget, May 16, 2025. Dear citizens and board council, city administration met with the finance committee and council to review this proposed budget and have submitted a favorable report which recommends adoption by this board of council. Fiscal year 2025-2026 is a continuation of the city's planned projects that have been well thought out and implemented. With the completion of Tower Park Playground in 2024, we are moving forward with all large projects to improve the citizen experience throughout our wonderful town. Outside of larger projects, this year's budget also includes the annual street resurfacing program, scheduled vehicle and equipment replacement, and wage increases for city staff. General fund. The fiscal year 2025-2026 budget covers all the necessary operating expenses for the city, from water and sanitation to copy paper. The fiscal year 25-26 general fund expenses are projected to exceed revenues after transfers by $7,539,751. This budget has $8,146,227 of budgeted capital projects, which will be funded by our reserve fund balance. Our projected general fund operating revenues total $16,543,773, a 3.2% increase over fiscal year 24-25, based on keeping the tax rate the same this year for budgeting purposes. General fund operating expenditures total $16,530,798, a 12% increase over fiscal year 24-25. This increase is primarily due to wage increases, health insurance increases, and the addition of 3 new full-time positions, 2 green space laborers and a facilities custodian. As in years past, there is not much discretionary spending. Although for budget planning purposes, we kept the tax rate revenue the same this year. This is a needed discussion in coming months with City Council. The city has elected to spend and or allocate over $10 million of our reserve funds in the past 2 years. This was specifically for 2 large community projects, Tower Park Playground and the completion of the Midway streetscape. The City of Fort Thomas has maintained a healthy reserve balance in past years, so the mayor and staff will present information to support a discussion about whether to consider a tax increase this year and or in future years. It is critical to discuss our financial plan moving forward to ensure the city is able to support and enhance operations in the future, along with continuing to improve the city by supporting the services and enjoyment of our citizens. Other funds. The remaining city funds cover a variety of city operations and projects. The KDOT Road Fund houses the city's street resurfacing program and also larger road projects like the stabilization of Main Avenue. There are no other significant changes within the CBD, waste, or the health insurance fund. Summary. The fiscal year 2025-2026 budget continues the city focus on maintaining a high level of both services and amenities to our citizens. We have been very intentional with our spending to continuously improve our city parks, infrastructure, and green space through a combination of grants, revenues, and reserves. The city of Fort Thomas has long been a great place to live and work and will strive to keep it that way. Respectfully submitted, Eric Koss, Mayor, Matthew Kramer, City Administrative Officer. So, that's the message. Andy, you had some questions on the budget?
Yes, so, first of all, I agree with using with essentially about half of our reserve fund for these capital projects. Our reserve fund was sitting right about 100% of our annual budget, thereabouts. And I think it's completely safe and conservative to be anywhere between a 3-month and 6-month. I know you like 6 months, I'm fine with a 6 month. And this brings us down to a 6-month reserve. One problem I have is how the revenues and expenses, and more so both, how they're trending. So if you don't count transfers in from reserves as part of our total revenue, our revenues have pretty much stayed flat over the past 3 years. I mean, there's been a little bit of this, but they stayed flat. Our operating expenses over the past 3 years have gone up 17%. They've really gone up. So somewhere right below thereabouts, we spend about 50% of our annual budget on the different payrolls and all the different departments. So that 50% is trending every year way higher than, even if we were to take a 4% increase every year, which would, I remember Joe saying that amounts to about $250,000, $275,000 a year if we take that 4% increase. That's half of what we're increasing. So, for example, our total labor for our city from 23 to 24 increased 11%, which was 600,000. Then the next year it increased 400,000. So so now we used to run why we had such a big reserve was because every year we had such a nice surplus. Well, that surplus is gone now. So our reserves will not be accumulating anymore because if you look at our total operating expenditures, like you said in your report, $16,500,000. Our total operating revenues are $16,543,000. That's after a really nice increase in all the insurance premiums we have. So even if so how it is, and I don't know how this works, how this compares to other places. I know that in my business, when you look at all of I'm not finished with it yet. I just kind of dove into this, and this is one argument for getting this a little earlier. Sometimes, even though you read it or you have a finance meeting, which was 2 hours, you get a taste of it, but you don't digest it that well. So it can take you a couple days to digest it. I digested it this afternoon. So that what that leaves us at is it doesn't have enough time for us to have a discussion on what a future solution is to plan for this. So how we're trending, if we keep on trending like this, the next budget, we're going to have our total operating revenues will be similar, but now our operating expenditures will be $17 million. So then we got a $500,000 shortfall. So the trend is what I'm worried about. So, and I don't know how, all the raises pan out when I was, at like 16%, 20%, the percentages really have to be looked at. And I don't know if there's too many people in these departments. I don't know, but something has to happen. I would say soon.
And the way you describe that is exactly right. And the process, which is kind of cool, that's been happening for years, is we start out with staff, and now that we got this new program that they're using, which helps, each department gets their budget from the previous years, and they make proposals back on what they want to see for the following year. Then we work on the budget, we have the meeting, we create the budget, and then, as I said in this thing, then we review and we look at it. The budget is based on not raising the tax, keeping the tax rate the same. Now is when we go and we have conversations about, okay, what are those trends? What do we need to do? Do we have to have a tax increase? Do we do it less? Do we do it more? Do we look down? I remember for years we would do a forecast out like 5, 10, 15 years on what would happen if you took the 4% or if you didn't take the 4%. What does that do in 5 years and 10 years and 15 years? Because your point's very well taken, but that's the process. You create the budget first, because it is just a budget. Because tonight on the agenda, we're doing the amendment ordinance for amending last year's budget, because the budget is not what you actually spend, it's what you think you're gonna spend. And then we amend it to make it more accurate on what we actually did spend. So now's the process. We have the budget because it comes from staff. They bring it to us, we discuss it, we have the budget based on no tax increase, and then we all have a conversation about exactly the kind of stuff you're saying. What do we need to do? How do we need to look at it? And then that helps determine what tax rate we set, which has to be determined in September, I believe. And so we have 2 meetings. We've always held 2 meetings in June in case we didn't get this budget done, and 2 meetings in September for the tax rate, because, so the process is exactly right. Budget, discussions, figuring out the rate, and go from there.
Yeah, and just to jump in too, I agree with everything Andy said and the mayor, and that's something, as far as the trend goes, and like I mentioned earlier, the forecast for future years, we discussed this, it was at the end of our finance committee meeting last week, and I brought up, and I think it was agreed upon, that we need to have, well, I won't get ahead of myself. We want the finance committee to meet a couple other times during the year at a minimum, especially, one time this summer, and it's to discuss things like this. It's to go over some of these trends. It's to go over in detail areas where there's been 17% increase or 11% increase and dig into why that is, but then also look to see, is that going to be a consistent trend? Or is there a reason for why that's happened over the last 2 to 3 or 4 years, whatever it might be? And then we can look at, we've held the taxes for the last several years. We haven't taken the 4%. When I got on council, that was a sin, and that wasn't that long ago. It really wasn't. And so we need to have an idea, instead of making these decisions at the finance committee meeting prior to, tonight's council meeting. We want to be able to forecast so that we can think about these things throughout the year. And not only that, it doesn't just give us more time to digest it, but it gives the community more time for input. And all these finance committee meetings are open to the public as well.
Not to speak.
That's right, they're not to speak, that's right. But we can take feedback anytime. If we have a meeting in July or August, we can take feedback and have dialogue for the remainder of the year until we vote on the following budget. And I think that's really, really important. So
then the discussion that we need to have in another finance meeting isn't just about how much we have to raise our taxes to meet the budget, it's how we can also lower the budget, right?
Absolutely.
It can be both.
Yeah.
I mean, we can choose to amend the budget at any point during the year. And we can also choose to say, we don't want to spend $4 million on this project, or we don't want to spend $2 million over here, because we're concerned about what's going to happen.
But we can't afford looking at it as, we can always rely on our reserves for a shortfall only lasts till the reserve fund.
Right.
Then you have no reserves at all.
And the thing is, the reserves, as you all know, we don't have a lot of sources of increased revenue. Right there, you could raise the 4% and it gets you $250,000.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, and beyond that, there's not a whole lot, which I think makes Fort Thomas a little bit unique relative to some other city that's got maybe land to develop an industrial base or something like that.
Right.
We don't have that.
Right.
So, just reinforcing the point that that's why we have to pay so close attention to the expense lines and whether it's sustainable, because if it continues, we don't have the offset short of reserves.
That's right, and there's so many moving pieces that we all need to collaboratively discuss, because like Andy said in his comments, he's comfortable with 3 months worth of reserves, but he'd be comfortable with up to 6. I know Matt will talk about this, and we're going to talk about this as a group as well. We've historically carried a lot more than that. And that's not a bad thing, it's worked very well for us. But we might be able to get to a point where, and that's why we're going to have the conversations, is from a forecasting standpoint, what fits Fort Thomas best, because we're not Florence. We're 180 degrees separate from Florence, to your point, Eric. We don't have that industrial base to bring in additional revenue.
But for the past years, the reason we've had a healthy reserve is because our revenues exceeded our expenses. We're at the tip of the hill and we're going down the other end.
I don't think reserves should really affect our overall outlook on our budget, because it doesn't really matter. I think having a 6-month revenue or reserve is perfect. If you have too much, then people can spend money on pet projects or things that aren't necessary, or spend more money on things that we don't really need, you know, so we tend to be a little bit less frugal than we should be as a city. And I think, so overall though, the reserves aren't really the conversation we have. The reserves have nothing to do with this. It's about how can we streamline how the city is run, and not necessarily about projects, because we still got to fund those to continue to keep our city great, right? So I think there's other ways to do stuff, but I think the reserves they are what they are. And I think after these major projects we have done, I mean, there's always going to be something, but that should get our reserves right to where they need to be, I think. And the city where it should be to give a nice opportunity for growth for businesses in town. What we're doing with the Midway District, the money we funded for the Tower Park, and the track, you know what I mean? So I know that Ingress is being looked at, but these are all great projects. So that's the way I look at it.
I look at it that way too, and I think that the fact that our operating revenues and our expenditures are damn near identical, $30,000 off, something like that.
For the first time ever, I think.
Right, well, yeah, but it's been trending in that direction, if you notice that.
Yeah, our expenses have been trending up, our revenues have been staying flat.
Staying flat, right, exactly, but
That's not a good thing, though.
That's okay.
That's a bad thing. So,
correct. You obviously don't want to spend more than you take in, but at the same time, you don't want to take in a large number more than you spend, because then there's
lower taxes.
Yeah, you can lower taxes if that's the case, but in the most recent years, we've had some major expenditures, and we're going to continue to for a little while.
Yeah, it's
so these all need to be discussed.
It's interesting that
They've really been funded by transfers in.
Right.
Which aren't what we're talking about. We're only talking about
You're talking about the baseline, yeah, capital, right.
basically,
not capital.
Right.
Operating.
Oh, that's what I meant.
yeah, retained earnings from the previous year, or whatever. The history in my tenure, 3 months was something that we stayed around pretty much of the time, 3 to 4 months. As we got into, and I don't know, this is probably 10 years ago now, the whole pension problem with the state, and the liability was through the roof, and they were gonna come to every city and require all this. We created a separate budget to help, to set aside money for that. So that crept our revenue, or our holdings up to like 6 months. Excuse me, I apologize. That I think is less of a problem now. That's less of a concern, but there was a time there between health insurance and pension that we were really concerned, and it was like, we need to hold some reserves just for that potential. So we're not in that situation now, but yes, I think all this needs to be discussed with them.
You know, I've said this from Matt a long time. I think he's done a good job. I think Ron ran really thin. I think he was very frugal with his money. And I think our public works was overworked. I was glad they added 2 more on. We started outsourcing concrete work, doing stuff like that. I don't mind having more employees as long as there's value there. You know what I mean? I'm not sure. I think we need to reevaluate some things and make sure that everybody's doing exactly what they're earning right now. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of high payroll on our staff as well. So, but I always thought we ran a little thin for the caliber of city. That's always the balance too, right? I mean, like Tiffany said, we love Fort Thomas for what it is and what we offer. And Andy and I were speaking to some kids last week, and you know, want them to get them engaged and get Fort Thomas and Tower Park and stuff like that. So we always ran a little thin. I've been very honest about hey, we make sure that people are covered when the phone rings, we answer. So there's always where's that balance. So.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll move on. Let's see, we have no old business or new business. We'll go down to the ordinances and go through the reading. Good discussion, folks. Appreciate it.
Ordinance number 007-2025, an ordinance amending a general fund budget for the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky for the fiscal year 7/1/2024 through 6/30/2025 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government. It's the first reading.
And that was amending last year's budget.
Yes.
To bring it in line with actual expenses.
Ordinance number 008-2025, an ordinance adopting a general fund budget, municipal road aid fund budget, debt service fund budget, capital projects, CBD fund, health insurance fund, and waste disposal fund budget for the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky for the fiscal year 7/1/2025 through 6/30/2026 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government. That's first reading. Then ordinance number 009/2025, an ordinance amending the personnel and pay classification plan by unilaterally increasing the official pay table by 4% effective on July 1, 2025, and amending the compensation ranges for various positions. That is a first reading.
And we have a municipal order.
MO 08/2025, a municipal order appointing Mark McCormick as a member of the Fort Thomas Planning Commission and setting his term of office.
Entertain a motion for that one.
I'll move to approve.
Second or second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
But I was looking at his resume. Oof.
Mark's here.
What's that?
Mark's here.
Well, no. I thought that was you. I was gonna point it out, but, I mean, it's impressive resume. You've done some great work over the years. What I most liked is you volunteered for this, just so you know. His grant writing. Did you see all the grants he's been awarded? Pretty amazing. So I wouldn't, he volunteered, so if you need to call him for some help. We talk about grant writing a lot and how important it is. It was brought up last time. I don't know who brought it up, maybe Ben. We've always talked about how important it is because of how to get it right, get the wording right, and actually know what's out there. So that's a great resume. Lucky to have you. Thank you for taking the time to volunteer.
Would you like to stand up and introduce yourself, give us a little bit of your history and?
Sure. So, Mark McCormick, I've been a resident of the city now 4+ years. I live on Highland Avenue, close to Moyer, next to the former mayor's house. And really like it here. Had one kid finish high school here for the last 2 years, and another one that still in school, but she wanted to go back and live to the school where her mother lives half the time. She's really, both my kids are very good students. And then I have a stepson that may end up going to school here as well. I've worked at the town level, city level, township level, in Ohio now, and in Indiana, and I've worked for large cities and Indianapolis as an intern years ago. I worked in the private sector, framing houses, done all types of things, lots of grants, probably about 3 dozen grants, about a 90% success rate, usually don't. And some of the more recent ones that haven't been approved were the ones that I wasn't in charge of picking the scope, because I think that's the important thing. I've been head of the planning and zoning office where I've worked 20 out of my 23 years out of school, and now I'm the development director for Union Township, which is the 3rd or 4th biggest township in the state of Ohio. Used to work on the west side in Dearborn County, Indiana. Was the head planning and zoning there for about 17 years. So I've dealt with a lot of different groups, and familiar with, a lot of other things. We make maps. We, of course, do revisions to code. I oversee all that. Heavily involved in economic development where I work, in terms of buying, disposing of property, writing contracts, setting up tax increment plans districts, joint economic development districts, those types of things. And I've had all kinds of other jobs, worked in cornfields for 4 years when I was a kid, and worked at 2 different Walmarts, so between that and government, I've met a lot of interesting people. So, any questions you guys have for me this evening?
No, but thank you very much for volunteering to serve in this role, because obviously your background will be excellent for it.
Yeah.
So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We did.
Did we vote on it? Did we vote? Yeah, we did.
Yes, we did.
Okay. I'll make a good question.
I will entertain a motion.
Wait, before you leave, one real quick, one more thing I was talking about joint meetings. Has it been 2 years since we met with the school board? Did we meet last year with them? Last year? All right, are we gonna meet every year or is it every other year? I usually know it was a new council, you know, is how they try to do it.
Yeah, it's usually every other year,
Okay.
I think it's been every other year.
because I think it's in the cycle with council.
Yeah, well, we just got elected, so that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, we did it right after election, so I think that's what we've been doing, isn't that right?
Well, no, we just got elected this year.
This year, but at the end of.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, we just got elected in
Maybe
November,
it's,
so.
maybe
it
it's the
hasn't
second year. I'll look.
Yeah, it's every couple of years. I just like to get, I think it's fun.
No,
I enjoy that meeting.
I need to make
So-
sure it's on the
Is there
calendar.
a so it had to be done?
What's that?
Wasn't it? Is that the
Yeah, we
one
did it
down
here.
I can't remember. No, that last one we had was, that was about the funding the project at Tower Park. That wasn't a really, was that a joint meeting or was it both?
I'll
Okay,
research. but
Okay.
Regardless, we need.
It's just been a minute. I just kind of like to catch up. I think that's a fun meeting. Yeah, I really do. Anybody else? So that's all. All right.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you all very much. We're adjourned. Oh, I gotta do this. There, now we're adjourned.